Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Billy Wilder Theater, home of the public programs for the UCLA Film and Television Archive. My name is Paul Malcolm. I'm the senior public programmer for the archive. We'd like to thank, thank you. We'd like to thank all of the individuals and organizations that have helped make tonight's screening possible. All of the archive's screenings in the Wilder are free thanks to a gift from an anonymous donor, and we're grateful to them for their support. This series and screening has also been made possible with support from the Yanai Initiative at UCLA for Globalizing Japanese Humanities. I also want to give a thank you to all the community partners who helped us get the word out about these shows. So let's have a round of applause for those folks. And thank you all for coming out to the second weekend of our series celebrating the 30th anniversary of Giant Robot Magazine. This series, Giant Robot. A lot of applause tonight. This series was curated by Giant Robot founder Eric Nakamura. It has been a real honor and pleasure to work with him on planning this entire series and sharing space with him here on stage. Let's hear a round of applause for Eric Nakamura, who's also out in the audience tonight. Woo. So we're halfway through the series, so I'm gonna plug a couple of upcoming shows. On this Sunday, we go way back with a special screening of episodes from two classic Japanese TV shows, Gigantor from 1966 and two episodes from Voyage into Space featuring Johnny Rocco and his flying robot, AKA Giant Robot, where it all sort of began in Eric's mind. Eric will be here with archive television curator Mark Quigley to introduce that program on Sunday. Then on the final weekend of the series, on Saturday, November 16th, we're going to be screening Gamera, the Guardian of the Universe, with that film's star, Ayako Fujitani, here in person. And then the next Sunday, November 17th, actor and filmmaker Daniel Wu will be here for the Hong Kong thriller One Night in Mongkok. So please check our webpage and come back for those shows as well. So turning back to tonight, we are thrilled to be presenting a modern anime classic, Tekkonkinkreet. We are especially thrilled to be presenting it with director Michael Arias here in person. Yay, Michael. I want to give a special thanks to Chance Husky at G-Kids for their help in making this screening possible and for getting us a copy of the film that we're going to show tonight. Michael will join me on stage with Eric following the film for a Q&A, so please stick around for that. Now, please help me welcome to the stage Eric Nakamura.
Thank you, Paul. Hey, thanks for coming out. How many of you here are fans of Matsumoto Taiyo? All right, those of you you're well schooled. So, how many of you here know Michael Arias? Even more. That's promising. I was going to say, if you don't know him, you're going to find out, and he's amazing. I got to interview Michael many years ago for Giant Robot Magazine, and I was intrigued. And then we became friends, which is amazing. That's kind of what happens with Giant Robot often. Really cool thing. And finally, got to do something with him, and this is that event, finally. And you don't get to see Tekkonkinkreet much on screen. This is a really rare opportunity, and it's super inspiring. It makes me want to draw and do art and all kinds of stuff, which I can't do. So I'll leave it to you. But Michael Arias is right here, and we're going to bring him up right now. So enjoy.
This is exciting. It's been a really long time since Tekkon's been seen in a theater in the U.S. In 2006, when it was released, we didn't get a lot of exposure in North America, just a handful of theaters, and it's been kind of unavailable since then. So it just brings me so much joy to have y'all here in this beautiful Billy Wilder Theater. I mean, it looks and sounds better than I've ever seen it and heard it looking. So it's just a really great time for me, coming at the end of a week that was a little challenging, right? So I really hope you enjoy it, and I'm really looking forward to talking about the movie afterwards. So that's it.
I wanted to start, Eric had mentioned Taiyo Matsumoto, in his introduction. I wanted to start with the source material, Tekkonkinkreet, the manga. I guess its run was from 1993 to 1994, thereabouts. When did you come across this material, and was it before the project initiated? Were you aware of it before the project came about? And what was your first take of it? Like, just talk about like its significance or its importance to you.
Well, thanks to both of you guys for this great, and thanks to all you guys for coming. It's really really great. So in like 95, 96, I was living with a friend and kind of between jobs. It was a really kind of weird time in Tokyo. It was right after the big Kobe earthquake and Om Shinrikyo, poison gas, subway attacks. And that was all like the poison gas attacks were in the subway station directly below where I lived. So there was this period where like the whole city the skies were filled with helicopters and police everywhere. It was a really weird time. And I was kind of just hanging out with my friend who was also as a freelance designer. And so we were just home all the time. This guy had an amazing manga collection. And I had read stuff here and there, Otomo, Yoshida Sensha, just kind of random collection of stuff that I had sort of stumbled upon. It definitely wasn't a manga fan, but got this great collection there, and I just asked my friend to recommend something to me, and he gave me the 3 volumes of Tekkon had just been, well, the whole series had been collected into books kind of around that time, and he gave them to me, and he just said, it's going to make you cry. And so that was kind of how I got into the comic book. And there were a couple of years there where it was sort of my Bible, and I was carrying it everywhere. And I was working kind of on the fringes of the Japanese animation industry, doing computer animation software, writing the software, and then working with animators to improve it, whatever. And I'd often get in this conversation like, so what are you doing? What's the next thing? What do you want to do? And I just kind of it became my stock answer to say that I'm going to make a movie of this manga. And it's kind of a indie, sort of underground manga or cult manga, so it wasn't that well known at the time. He definitely had pretty serious fans. But that's kind of how it started. And the project went through a few different incarnations. I produced a short pilot with a friend, a veteran animation director, directing like a 3-minute digital animation piece, and that kind of fell apart. And very slowly gathered steam. I produced animated anthology, kind of spin-off of The Matrix called The Animatrix, and that kind of had me embedded in a studio with a lot of the artists who ended up working on Tekkon, and that's sort of how, after a while I started pitching myself as a director, it was a long and very bloody story to actually how we made it. But there were about, before we actually went into production, there were about 7 years where I was just like flogging this project everywhere and to everyone who would listen. And things worked out. There were some stumbles along the way. I don't know.
Eric, how would you describe, just sticking with the source material, that its influence or its place in the sort of manga culture?
I think at least here, Tekkonkinkreet is probably one of the most influential for indie comic book art, or indie artists, sorry, just indie artists in general, that I work with in my world. It's probably the most influential for as a manga. And yeah, it's one of those things where once people see it, it makes them want to draw, it makes them want to create. And, there's some artists that actually seem to take off on actual Tekkonkinkreet style art and then develop it into their own. So it's actually, to me, like a really huge influence. And I know some artists are probably here who are influenced by Tekkonkinkreet. It's a big deal. But yeah, what made you think
It's
you had the power
ironic.
to do it?
It's not a mainstream
yeah,
title
what made
at
you
all.
think you can do this?
Well, I'd been
it's a
kind
huge
of
one, man.
On the fringes of the film industry for a long time. Had worked in Hollywood for a few years, and then in Japan for I think by the time we actually went into production, I'd been living in Tokyo for about 15 years. Always doing kind of either working in animation or visual effects or computer graphics. And so, if you dream about something long enough, this some kind of image forms in your head. And, if you keep dreaming about it, it sort of starts to grow. I was, of course, this was the first feature I directed, but I was also helping out a lot of colleagues on their bits of the Animatrix and on commercial projects and other stuff. So, I mean, to be completely honest, in making Tekkonkinkreet, I was really flying blind, and I didn't have a lot of time to reflect on, like, is this the right way of doing things, or
Were you channeling Taiyo Matsumoto's work?
yeah,
or
a lot of
were
it.
You
I
just
mean,
looking to yourself?
Taiyo was a huge inspiration. He never told me this, do this or do that, but he was always just like, do whatever you want with it, make it yours. And he was also showing me a lot of the stuff that he was working on at the time. He was writing Ping Pong for a while, and then Number 5, and those were also like, oh, I want these two, great, they're so amazing. I mean, he's still just my favorite artist ever. Like, I just think he's such a genius.
So, I've not read the manga, the source material, but I'm assuming black and white are the main characters of that novel. But is the film adaptation, like, does it tell the whole story, or you're taking one story from the series and compressing it?
It's
and,
actually
how did you
quite
choose?
faithful.
Okay, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, it's pretty much the same story, though, that we had to kind of stitch together a few different things and sequence some of the episodes so that it would work better, as a film. I think the biggest change between the manga and the film is kind of like the scale of it. In the manga, it all sort of takes place on one street corner of one little town. And, because I wanted to make it really the story of the evolution of this city. At least I wanted that arc to kind of run over the story of these kids and these gangsters and aliens. I won't say template, but sort of my guiding light was like Sergio Leone westerns. I wanted to do something like, there's this little town in the middle of the desert, and the bad guy comes and he wants to build a railroad through our town, or, something like that. It really felt like that, or at least that was kind of one of the subtexts of the manga. And I thought that would work better if we're talking about a real city, not just, a little street corner. So, that the setting of the manga feels much more local. It also feels much more Japanese, whereas I think me and my art director turned it into something more like a kind of Pan-Asian city.
Well, I mean, just you talk about the image that sort of stuck with you and sort of carried you through the development of it. So we're talking about like an underground sort of a cult, manga that has an influence. But now we've got, a film that is also like off the beaten. I mean, it doesn't look like any other kind of anime. I mean, let's go back to the image. Like visually, it's so beautiful, it's so striking, and it's so dynamic. And it's for me, it's just so much like it's so much unlike like my standard picture of anime. So, a couple of questions. Like, one, what was your sort of like your vision for the film? I mean, the look of it. How did you achieve the look? I mean, and then was there any sort of resistance along the way? Hey, this looks a little too different, or this looks a little too vision. Yeah. I mean, it's like there's a certain point in the movie you're like, how visionary is this going to get? And it's like a lot more visionary. You know what I'm saying? It's like, was there any resistance to like, hey, this is not what an anime should look like or feel like?
Well, in most of the folks that I was working with were real like veterans of animation, and like my art director, for example, he'd worked on everything from My Neighbor Totoro to Akira. He's just done a ton of movies. It's funny, right before coming on Tekkon, he had spent like 9 years working on Otomo's follow-up to Akira, which is a movie called Steam Boy. The whole thing takes place in like Victorian Manchester, and the entire movie is like a palette of gray tones. It's all it's like a steampunk aesthetic, and so it's all gray and silver and metallic, and our first meeting for Tekkon, really kind of my introduction to him, he was asking me like kind of what sort of movie do you want this to make? And I told him, well, the only thing I remember telling him anyways is that I wanted to make the backgrounds kind of the star of the movie. Let's just crush the characters with the backgrounds. And I think he took that as a real kind of permission to go nuts. And because he had been working for 9 years in black and white, basically, I think, we really loaded on the color. Right. We were, I don't know, inspired by a lot of kind of Showa, sort of post-war era Japanese design, poster design, matchbox design, stuff like that. We were taking a lot from there. But really trying to make it, I think the image that we arrived on was kind of like when you knock over a kid's box of toys, it's just like colors and weird shapes and things of different scale and, upside down, right side up, and nothing kind of makes sense, but there's like in the aggregate, it turns into something beautiful, and that was, that's kind of a something that we kept in our minds anyways. Yeah.
When you do something like that, I mean, to me, it's really artistic. When you do something this artistic, how do you look at manga today? I mean, anime today too. Like, there's so much out there. There's way more, right? So how do you look at that compared?
Well, I mean, I think Tekkon is one of probably the last movies where everything was done on paper. From the animation, which is all pencil and paper, to the backgrounds, which is all like poster colors on just big pieces of paper. I used to go over to my art director's desk after he'd gone home and fish through his wastebasket for discards, which each piece that he did, even if he had crumpled it up, they were all beautiful pieces of art. And like the backgrounds for Tekkon, they're really, I mean, when you see them up close, they're really cool. And I think that's something that kind of makes it feel special in that it's all physical. And the way animation is made nowadays, even in Japan, for the most part, it's become digital. So, the background folks, they paint in Photoshop with a tablet. The animators work on iPads or Cintiqs, and so there's a very different connection to the artwork. You can go back without any loss and fix things. You can just keep making everything as perfect as you like. I think there's a certain raw quality to the animation, and the backgrounds in Tekkon was kind of one of the last of an era, and you don't see a lot of animation that looks like that now. A lot of stuff, sort of mimics that look through other means, but it's kind of like putting the grain in something that's shot digitally to make it look like it was shot on film. Or, that trying to make it look more DIY, look more lo-fi. But this is actually lo-fi.
Yeah, wow. Cool.
Well, one of the amazing things that, and I'll ask one more question, and we'll turn it over to the audience. We'll have mics, so just raise your hand, and I'll point you, and we'll bring a mic to you, and wait for the mic. Yeah. No, one of the things I thought was so striking about the film was something you just described. There's all this sort of fantastical things happening. There's these visions happening in this kind of dream state, but then there's all these wires and pipes and tubes and scratches and dirt and everywhere. It really grounds everything else that's happening in the film. When you were talking about like layering in that background and stuff like that, can we talk a little bit about the voice acting? I love the characters' voices, and like were these all professionals that you were anime regular voice actors, or were you drawing anyone from outside the field?
Yeah, it was kind of a strange mixture. My original concept is, I was really inspired by this Brazilian movie, City of God, Cidade de Deus. It's just an amazing movie, and that was coming out as we were kind of going into pre-production. I made everyone watch it. It was a big influence on us. But this kind of animation, the voices are done after the picture, which is not the way animation is typically made here in the US or outside of Japan, I guess. So you have a lot of time to think about kind of casting and how you're going to do this. My original pitch was we're going to get actual street kids and teach them how to be voice actors. My producers did not come on board. So that became, let's get people who aren't veteran anime voices. Because if you watch a lot of Japanese animation, there's like 10 actors who are in everything. And they each have like 3 or 4 voices that they can do. And I think a lot of the emphasis in anime voice acting is to be able to, go into the studio with very little prep and just, bang it out. Because a lot of the culture is kind of TV animation culture. So it's just like, we have a day to do all of this. So we decided to kind of spend a lot more time on the voices and get actors who were either like stage performers or like actual actors rather than anime voice actors. And some people like the guy who did the voice of Rat. He's kind of a famous Buto dancer named Min Tanaka. He was very inexperienced in even acting, but he kind of was the character. And he had this great presence and incredible voice. And there were other folks. The young actress who did the voice of White, is a woman named Yu Aoi. I saw her. She was in
Famous.
one of she was in one of Shunji Iwai's movies, Hana and Alice, and her performance in that was kind of the basis of White. She's kind of like this kind of oddball kind of genius, but also she's got this great, very emotional relationship with her buddy, and that kind of felt like the kind of White I wanted. So her, it's just a kind of a really interesting group of actors. And what most of them had in common was that they had never done any animation work before. Now it's kind of standard in Japan to cast like famous actors, screen actors, in the main parts of your animation, because, for obvious reasons. But at the time that we were casting Tekkon, it was actually quite rare. So, yeah, it was maybe because I was not kind of part of the system in a lot of ways. I think I had a little more freedom with those kind of choices.
Does have any questions from the audience? Let's go right here in the middle. You right there. Yeah. No, I'm sorry. No, there's a gentleman back behind you. I'll
Microphone's
get you in a
coming.
second. So we'll bring you the mic. Yeah, you right there. Yeah, I'm sorry. I can't see where I'm pointing. There we go, right there.
Thank you. So my question for Michael, you've translated several of Taiyo Matsumoto's manga, including Ping Pong and Number 5. So I was curious, how did you get interested in manga translation, and how did you get involved with like translating those Taiyo Matsumoto series?
What was the first part of the question again? Sorry.
Oh, it was just you've translated several of Taiyo Matsumoto's manga. So like, how did you get involved with manga translation?
Oh, Taiyo and his wife asked me to. I think the first one they asked me to do was Sunny, and I had translated a book of Taiyo's wife. Saho Tono is also an amazing mangaka, and she had done a book of what's kind of like manga poetry in a way. It's called Midnight Mayonaka. It was really, really cool collection. I don't think it's, well, I don't know. For some reason, she wanted to just put a little sort of appendix in the end of the book of all the words in English. And so she asked me to translate that. That was years before we were doing Tekkon. But at some point when Taiyo was drawing Sunny, the folks doing the English edition, Viz Comics, I think there was a discussion with Taiyo, like if he had any translators that he wanted to work with, or if they could just pick someone for him. And he and his wife made a case for me doing the translation. I had never done translation except for, myself. And Sunny took me a really long time, not because, because I was translating it basically as he was writing it. So I would get a chapter as he finished a chapter. And it meant that because he had the whole thing in his head, right? And I'm kind of figuring out what's what, and what do we do with the accents? Because all the kids are speaking kind of a very provincial Japanese accent, and that was, well, it was a real gift to be able to dive so deeply into the world of a new work of his, and since then I've done, I think, 6 more series with him. Cats of the Louvre and Number 5, Ping Pong. I just finished his newest, which is called Tokyo These Days, which is just such a great manga. I don't think I'd want to work on anyone else's Manga?
That's
I mean,
cool.
you know, it's yeah, my it's a joy. But I don't, you know, it's translating. It's hard work, and it, you know, I don't think. Well, I think it'd be tough to make a living as a professional translator of manga. Now it's like, you know, people get, I think, probably halfway there just using digital translation tools. It's yeah, you know, it's for me, it's really just a way to get, you know, the thing sooner than anyone
work.
else, and
To work with an
enjoy
artist you
it.
respect, yeah. So what was the question that right here? So we're gonna bring a mic to you. Raise your hand. Raise your hand till the mic. There we go. Teamwork. I love it. Thank you.
Brilliant. Hi. So you made a beautiful film. It was gorgeous.
Thank you.
And seems so creative how you put it together. And I wanted to ask you about the music, because the music was really beautiful. My boyfriend wrote part of that soundtrack, and he's sitting next to me, and I've never heard it before or seen the film. So I'm really impressed with both of you, more than I knew. So now I have to be nicer to you than I ever was before, because I respect you even more. Oh my God. Anyway, so I just wanted to know the story about how you actually decided to have Plaid make the music, and how that was, and because it worked so well. And yeah, my first question was actually your first question, so I get to ask that one now. So.
Okay, well, if I did anything to help Ed impress his girlfriend, you owe me, man. Well, okay, this is kind of a funny story. Let's see. I was working on this kind of pilot film for Tekkon. I was sort of producer and CG director, and we had kind of wrapped the pilot. We had taken it to Annecy Film Festival and showed it to a lot of people, and then my director kind of walked off, and my producer kind of walked off, and I was sort of left. We had taken an old karaoke room in Harajuku and kind of gutted it and turned it into our little workshop and studio. And me and 6 or 7 other folks made this really cool little pilot for Tekkon. But me and a couple other guys were left with the task of kind of packing everything up. You know, we were having to move out of the building, and one of the guys helping us clean the place up was a young carpenter who had helped us build the place, kind of, you know, build the bar counter. It was a very kind of a school project kind of vibe, and he was listening to a lot of cool music, and he, as I guess kind of as thanks for the job, he gave me a pair of tickets to a show that Plaid were doing at, I think, Loft +1 in Shinjuku, which is a tiny little venue, and this would have been in like 99, 2000 maybe, probably 99. And like this is when I think Andy and Ed were still using like keyboards on stage. So it was a long time ago. And I had heard a couple tracks by their previous band, and I went to the show, and I just really dug their music. I think the album was Not for Threes, maybe. It was like one of their early things, and so while I was putting the film together, while I was, working on the very early stages, I always had Plaid's music kind of linked to the film sort of in my head. That was the soundtrack of the movie. And kind of, I don't know, I found a link to the guy doing their video stuff and sent him a mail saying I wanted them to do the music for my movie. And they responded, and it was before they were big and famous.
Yeah,
It's been I mean we've worked on a lot of stuff together since then, and it's just been a real joy to have such creative and collaborators, people. I mean, Ed and my sound designer Mitch, who's also in the audience. The three of us spent. The three of us spent a couple weeks, I think, on the dubbing stage, sleeping on cots, basically living in the mix stage, that time spent, in the trenches, some real memories formed.
Eric, you had
Oh no, I was just gonna say you owe him.
Yeah.
another question from the audience? We got one over here on this side.
Hi, I'm huge fan of this film and Taiyo Matsumoto. And I grew up in Japan, and I was in high school when this film came out. I had a DVD box, and this movie, watched this many, many times, and I made a lot of fan art of this film. So now I'm working as an artist and a buto dancer. So this movie was a huge inspiration for me. And then now that I grew up and after I graduated art school in Tokyo and spent 10 years there. So now I see the movie, I see many views of Tokyo City in the film, like Asakusa, Koenji, Shimbashi, Shinjuku. So did you mix and made inspiration of those cities of Tokyo? Also the scene of the Kimura and the Snake were at the bar was reminded of Daido Moriyama's bar in Kanazawa. So
Yes.
Oh really? Oh my gosh.
I think we changed the lips to
Yeah.
eyes.
Yes.
Yeah,
I
good,
felt
good.
that.
Yeah, well, this is the problem with plagiarism.
Homage. I think we call it homage.
Wow, amazing. So did you got the inspiration from Koenji as well?
Yeah, the studios in that Stadio Yondoshi, this is in Kichijoji, and so Koenji's on my way home basically, and there's a lot of towns like Koenji, Nishiogi-kubo, Shimokitazawa, that whole those kind of towns that still have the old bars or the old shopping arcade. Those, I spent a lot of time in those places. Just admiring the crazy electrical wiring, dangling from every available mounting point, and just all the strange mixture of there's parts of those towns that kind of look like shanty towns. They're all like corrugated aluminum roofing, and there's something visually very exciting about those kind of locations. I put a lot of that into Tekkon.
Another question from the audience? Let's go in the very back row.
Hi, I like the trip out part at the end, or where it the film's already very colorful and full of stuff, and then it goes way beyond when Minotaur is entering the picture. Well, I was wondering what some of the influences or thoughts were during that part. It seemed like there were a lot of you know, almost Jack Kirby-ish qualities here and there, cut out things in 2001 and whatever.
Yeah, well, I mean, the kind of, trip sequence in 2001, the last 10 minutes of Akira, those were, big inspirations, just in terms of like, what's the job here? We have to like suggest a journey into the interior, but something that's, that is like a renaissance for this guy's soul. And I had asked a mentor of mine, an amazing animator and director named Koji Morimoto, to actually board that whole sequence. And it was very close to the end of the production. We still had like a hole in the storyboards, just the ending of the movie, basically. Note to self: don't do it last. And he turned out to be just an incredible procrastinator, and it was my task to kind of pester him and nag him. It was awful, and he ended up kind of throwing up his hands, like, if you got it in your head, you do it. And he gave me a small stack of drawings, super rough, just like really sketches, that ended up being kind of just points of departure, or like a kind of launching pad for the different bits and pieces. We wanted this kind of nightmare vibe. The guy who was doing the actual character animation for that scene said, let's try something totally different. And so he did this. This is crazy. He animated the whole thing, start to finish, in ballpoint pen. So no erasing, no fixing it up. And he also, rather than, typically in hand-drawn animation, you have kind of a lead animator who does the keyframes, and then you have sort of a different group of animators doing in-betweens to combine that all, to make it all continuous motion. And he did the whole thing all as key animation, so he drew every frame in ballpoint pen. I think, we were kind of tiptoeing past his desk, like, don't bug Kubo-san. He's animating the Minotaur. And so it does give the whole thing a really, kind of weird look. And then, we were kind of throwing everything into it because we had worked out everything else, and there was a certain, I think, desperation to our efforts in the end. And I that sequence, there's all this other kind of random stuff. My art director painted a bunch of kind of still images of what he thought was kind of hell. There's like a shot of kind of a scene from Abu Ghraib prison that's tucked in there. There's like a kind of Daido Moriyama, some weird screaming lady, a bunch of school kids hanging themselves in the playground. It's just like stuff that was kind of ad-libbed. Like, we didn't really discuss a lot of it. Everyone was kind of throwing everything in that scene. And it kind of amazes me that it actually sort of makes a weird kind of sense, at least on a visceral level. I mean, it could have. Yeah, it's hard for me to watch because
It's
it
definitely
really,
visceral.
Uh,
I wanted to. I'm sorry. I wanted to sort of close by bringing us back to Giant Robot. So, yeah, woo. You're Michael. You were working. You were living and working in Japan, coming back to the States, going back and forth. When did you first become aware of Giant Robot? And from that perspective, moving back and forth between Japan and the States, like, how did you? I mean, how do you see its influence? How did you see it impacting the field that you were working in?
I had seen the magazine a few times. I think I had a couple copies just because they were doing a lot of kind of Asian American, sort of more indie art. There was a kind of I felt like a punk kind of fanzine sensibility that really spoke to me, and I think Eric and I talked. Eric saw the Animatrix, I think, and wrote some nice words about it. Well, I think you interviewed me, or there was kind of an early,
Something like that.
yeah, a very early meeting. That would have been like in 2003 or something like that. I think that was the first time that we met, and then we found we had friends in common. Of course, I love. Well, even the magazine, the shop, the gallery is, it's such a great world there. I mean, I don't know if that was by design or
When it happens.
it's, but that's how we got to know each other. And well, right now I've been in LA for several months, for the first time in 25 years or something, and it makes me feel it's comforting to think that Giant Robot is just up the road.
Awesome. Wait, one question I still have. What does Taiyo Matsumoto ultimately say about your project?
About
Yeah.
Tekkon?
Sure.
Oh, I think he really treasures it. I mean, he wrote me a lot of kind of drawings and kind of notes of encouragement when I was making it, and then gave me some beautiful kind of thank you messages. The times that we've been participated together in events where the movie is shown, like he's done a couple retrospectives of his art where they've shown the movie, and he's, I just assumed, because like I don't want to watch it again, it's like watching pictures of myself as a baby, or in a crowded theater. I don't know. I mean, today is actually the first time I've watched it start to finish in many, many years, and it's hard for me. I was very young, very inexperienced when I was making it. My family was a mess. I was sleeping under my desk at the studio. It brings back a lot of trauma. But Taiyo every time this has happened, I think 3 or 4 times that we've been at events where he said, "Let's watch it.
Wow.
Let's watch it. Come on,
Wow.
finish your
That's
beer.
cool.
Let's go in and watch it." Which is well, just coming from him. Yeah, it's. I think he's really happy with it. I think he really treasures it. He's always been very clear that it's not how he saw it in his head. He feels like it's me and Tekkonkinkreet mated somehow. But I think he loves it.
Awesome.
You know, I was going to end there, but I would ask this question about like what's next for the film, because there was a little window of time where I wasn't sure we were going to be able to show it because it was in between rights negotiations between two companies, and I was like kind of nothing was sort of moving forward for months. And I was like, oh my God, I really want to show this. And Eric really wanted to show it too. But now it's with G Kids. And are there any plans for it to come back out, or are you re-releasing it, or Blu-rays, or any plan to get it back out in the world?
Something like that.
Okay, cool. All right. Well, you got to help us spread the word. Thank you so much, Michael, for coming out. Really appreciate it.
Thank you all so much.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody.